Welcome to another episode of Drop Zone Clear, and today I'm going to be doing some weathering on this Lifthawk model that I've done a bit of painting on already, but this is just adding a few details and final touches to it. So these are the things that I'm going to be using for this technique. I've got two pots, one here and one here, of Humbrol weathering powder. This one here is the rust colour, and this one here is the dark earth colour. The other things I'm going to be using is this here is Surgical Spirit. Now I'm using this as the glue for the weathering powders, and the nice thing about it is when that dries it will evaporate and there'll be no residue left over, so that's why I'm using that product. And the final thing that I'm going to be using is this brush here, which is a fine detail brush, and that's made by Army Painter. I find that's perfect for the job. Really has a very fine tip, as you can see there, and it's great for doing this work. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the camera off and we're going to get started, and I'll show you how we progress. Okay, so let's get started. This is the first section that I'm going to be doing for this. So I'm just going to dip my brush here just in a little bit of the Surgical Spirit, which I've got in this cap here, and then get a little bit of weathering powder here and just start to just mix it into my palette. There's just a very tiny little bit of weathering powder and a tiny bit of the Surgical Spirit here, and I'm just making it so it's kind of making it into sort of like a liquid type paint. And I'm going to get my model, and the areas that I'm picking out is, as you can see here, I've already painted these parts silver and I've given them a wash of black. So all I'm going to do is just start adding a little bit of the paint here and just sort of mixing it around there. And let's do another bit. So let's just get a little bit more paint here. The paint solution that I made with the weathering powder and the Surgical Spirit, and I'm just picking out these panels that I want to be rusty, and this is really going to sort of make the model pop and make it a little bit more interesting. So as we see, we've got another bit here, so I just need a little bit more of this solution. So we're just going to just pop that on there like that. And what I'm doing is I'm not filling the whole panel, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get tones of silver, brown and this rust colour, and by doing that, that's going to sort of just build up a depth of rust. Because if you've ever looked at rust, you'll see that it's not one colour, it's kind of lots of different colours. You'll get browns, you'll get kind of oranges in there, and that's the thing, to make this effect really work on this model, I don't want it to be just one colour, which is this sort of orange rust colour, because it'll look a bit flat. So I'm trying to give it a little bit more depth by just selectively just taking little sections and adding bits of this rusty orange to it. I've got another panel here, so let's just do that. So as you can see here, I've got a panel, just adding a little bit of the rust there like that. And let me have a look around. Have I got all the panels? There's another one here, so there's just one more to do. So just here, I'm just going to just do a few fine strokes there. And there we go. As you can see, I'll just put it so it's a bit closer to the light so you can see the panels I've been painting. There you go. And this one here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to allow that to dry, and the next thing I'm going to be doing is I will be adding the dark earth, and let's pick up from that section. So I'll see you in a bit. Welcome back again, and this is the next stage of my rust tutorial for the Resistance Lifthawk model. So what I've done is I've let the coat of orange weathering powder dry now, and I've mixed up a little bit of solution in my little palette here that I'm using, and I've got dark earth, and I'm just gonna take the model here, and what I'm going to do is I'm not going to cover the whole of the orange sections that I've done previously, but I'm just going to add just little sort of like washes. Got quite a thin solution of the brown here, and what I'm trying to do is just make some more tonal quality into the rust and just make it so that it kind of gives it a bit more depth. So I'm just very gently just taking sections here and just adding a bit of this brown wash solution to it, just like that. So let's add a little bit more here. I think I need some, just to take this edge off a bit. There we go. And as you can see, this gives it sort of like a really nice dirty rust tone, and that's what I'm going for. For my Resistance Army, I've gone for a lot of different colours with my Lifthawk. So I've got olive, I've got grey, I've got copper like this one, but when I put the copper on, I've also done a few dry brushes of olive over the top of it to sort of mute it so it doesn't look too shiny, because I don't really want to go for like a really kind of shiny brand new looking Lifthawk, because I don't think it sits with the fluff of the Resistance, obviously, as they're kind of like a war torn survivalist type faction that have been under scourge occupation for 100 years. So none of their equipment, in my opinion, is going to look very shiny and new like, say, the UCM factions or the PHR and things like that. But yeah, that just seems to be going on okay at the moment. So let's just finish off these panels here. So I'm just going to just add a little bit more. So I'm trying not to knock the camera here, but it's I haven't really got a lot of space to move it on my workstation here. But I think you can see what I'm doing, and just very selectively adding bits of the dark earth wash, and maybe a little bit here as well. Just I'm dabbing it on, also like trying to mottle it to make it so it's really not uniform. There are other ways of doing weathering techniques, but due to the drop zone models being so small, I find that this technique works particularly well just using the mix of the surgical spirit and the weathering powder, as you've got a little bit more control over it, and you can sort of determine the viscosity of the mixture of the weathering powder and the surgical spirit to make it so it goes on quite nicely, and it's quite effective. I think it's quite a nice effect. So let's just add a little bit more here. There we go. Now, one thing I do want to say at this point is, before I started weathering this model, I have actually varnished it, and I use spray varnish. I've used the matte spray varnish because I've not actually tested this out for myself, but I have been told that if you put varnish over weathering powders, it can change the pigment a little bit. So to avoid this, what I did is I painted the model and then I varnished it, and then I'm doing the weathering coats over the top of the varnish that I put on, just to seal the model off, so that when I'm using it in a tabletop battle, none of my paint's going to get chipped off. Well, it does occasionally, I'll be honest with you, even with varnish, but it certainly minimises it, and that's good for me, because once I've painted the model once, I just, you know, would like to keep it painted and don't really like touching it up and making it so that I have to keep putting paint on it just to make it look nice. Okay, so yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to finish this video here, but there is one more section that I do just to finish the model off, and I'll be back in a few minutes when this dries and I'll show you that, and there we go, that's that video done. Okay, we're back again, and this is the final part of this tutorial for weathering, and the only thing that I'm going to be doing now is I have a little bit of silver paint on my brush here, and I'm just going to pick out the edges just of these panels here with sort of like an edge highlighting technique of painting, and I find that by doing this it just sort of makes the model just pop a little bit. It just gives it a nice sort of frame to the rust technique that I've put on, and it's good. Also, another thing you can do, I'm not going to be doing it on this model, but if you just drag your brush along, well actually I'm going to do it just a little bit, just on here like that, and then maybe if you just wipe a bit of paint off there, you can make it look like there's scratch marks as well on the metallic sections, these bolted on panels that the Resistance put on to strengthen the armour of the Lifthawk, or maybe it's to repair battle damage from battles with various different factions that they're being up against. And let's just get a little bit more paint on my brush there, and we'll just get this finished off, because it doesn't really need a lot of paint to get this done. And in fact, what I might do after I finish this is I might go over with a black wash again, just to finish it off, but that's optional. All the black wash will do is, whereas what I'm doing now is by putting this silver paint on, it's just making the model pop and really stand out. By putting the black wash on, it does the opposite. It mutes it and just blends it all in, and just makes it so that the model is going to be more sort of muted. It just depends what sort of effect you're going for in your model, really. I like both effects really, and I kind of mix them up a bit with my Resistance models. And the more that I'm going to do my Resistance model, I very much want it to be like almost like a patchwork quilt style looking army, where everything's a little bit hodgepodge and mishmash of various different colours and tones. I'm going to paint my battle buses when I get them. Hopefully they should be in the post next week, because Hawk is sending me out some. I'm going to be painting them, one like a school bus, and the other one I'm going to go for kind of like a prison bus, but an American prison bus, and make it look a little bit like kind of maybe Land of the Dead or something like that. Give it that kind of feel really. So there we go, that's the effect there. So I'm just going to just take you through the panels that I've done. So I've done this one as well, and underneath the model you can see there we've got a bit of rust there, and rust there, and here. So there we go. Hope that was useful, and if you've got any questions then please feel free to message me. I'm more than happy to have a chat with you about Drop Zone, because hey, it's an awesome game and love playing it. And also being a Talon, you know, it's I feel it's like part of my responsibilities to talk to people about the hobby and enthuse about the hobby, and I don't really find it a chore, to be honest with you. I'm not quite finished painting this model yet, because I've painted the windows at the front of the model here brown, but I'm going to go with a lighter brown just to sort of make it so it looks like reflections coming off the window here. But there we go. Hope that was useful, and if you want to get a little bit of rust on your Resistance models, then give it a go. I'm sure you'll be very pleased with the results.